Guys, 2024 has been stacked so far this year. There's been so much going on in the world of music, so many disses, so many beefs, so much music dropping. Some of the biggest names in the world have already dropped. There'll be more artists on the way as well. I had a feeling 2024. I felt a tingle about this year. I felt like it was going to be a big year for music, and it already feels like that is happening. And so, as we are a few months in, like I did last year, I'm going to do tier lists for each point of the year to rank some albums, some significant albums, some maybe overlooked albums, some independent releases as well, in a nice neat tier list, and tell you guys my thoughts on those albums. There'll be some that I've spoken about already, but there'll be some that I haven't spoken about at all, and you're going to want to stick around to see which albums I'm going to be ranking. There's like 40-ish albums on this tier list. You can click the link in the description and make your own tier list and share it with me as well over on the Instagram, over on the Twitter, over on the whatever you follow me on, and share it with me over on there. And I would like to see how wrong you are, because I am right and you're wrong. No, I'm kidding. Okay, calm down, all right? But yeah, we've got quite a lot to get through. I've got a bit of a cold, so you're probably going to notice my voice is a little do apologise for that. I will try my best. My throat is a bit iffy as well, so we will try our hardest here, guys. It is Easter Sunday today. Happy Jesus Day to you all as of recording, and yeah, let's get on with it. Starting with one of the most underwhelming albums of the year, 21 Savage. Straight in the Met here for me. You know what? It's kind of funny. I keep forgetting this album came out. I don't want to be one of those guys that says an album came and went, because I do feel like that's really reductive to speak about music. But honestly, this album does have that in my mind, because I constantly forget it came out. But yeah, just 21 doing what 21 does over some really uninteresting beats to me. I'm just, not feeling it, man. I feel like he needs to change things up. I've already mentioned this in the video before, but yeah, I'm just not vibing with it now. I want something new. I want him to give us something a little bit different. He's like the baby, you know. We were bored of the baby, and we seem to be okay with 21 doing the same thing over and over again. Now, I'm not saying they're like each other in terms of who they are, because obviously the baby shat himself and absolutely kamikazed himself out of the music industry for a very good reason. But in terms of their music, in terms of what they bring to the table, it's the same every time. I'm bored, man. I'm bored. Give me something new, 21. Adrian Lenker, Bright Future. I've got to say, man, this has been one of the biggest disappointments of the year. Now, it's indecent good. Calm yourselves down. It's a good album. But for what I expect from Adrian Lenker, it is the world. And for me personally, I did tweet about this as well, but in context with her discography, this isn't top tier at all. And then when you combine Big Thief with that, it's still not top tier. Like, I'm sorry, there are so many amazing releases in the catalogue of Adrian Lenker, whether it's solo, whether it's with Big Thief. And I just don't think this stacks up. It's not quite as memorable in how it sounds. It's really low-key at times. Like, I was really having to focus when I was listening to it. And I get that she's wanting to do something a bit different. She's not going to give you the same thing every time. But for me personally, I just didn't quite get gripped as I usually do with her stuff. And that's just how I feel. It's alright though, but yeah, people were asking me if I was going to do a full review, and it just didn't inspire enough out of me to say something for like a 10-minute video. I just didn't have enough to say. I thought the Vampire Empire cover too, well, no, it's not a cover obviously, it's her solo rendition of it was far weaker than the Big Thief version for me, and everyone kind of was a bit mixed on that Big Thief version, but I liked that quite a bit more than her version solo. So yeah, you know, Ruined, really good track. There are really good tracks on it, but for me personally, I just wasn't quite as enamoured. I'm usually enamoured with her as an artist. I'm usually like floored by her vocals, floored by her writing, and none of that really quite came together on this one. Ali X. I'm responding to feedback because apparently I don't say the album names or the album artists for when I do these tier lists. I didn't realize I was doing that, by the way. I wasn't doing that on purpose for anyone that watches. I just must have been skipping over saying the name. But this is Ali X, Girl with No Face, and it's very good. She keeps doing this, so she keeps having albums that like fall in this category of being like very good. Her last album in 2021, was it? Or was it 2020? Was it actually earlier than that? I can't remember if it was during COVID or not. That's how like you envision things now with the world. But anyway, it was quite a few years ago. That was good too. It had a lot of good tracks, a lot of good pop-in anthems, choruses that really, really stuck out, striking vocals. And this album's exactly the same. I just feel like she's never quite giving me an album that I absolutely love. And yeah, do I want to return to it on a regular basis? Not quite. That keeps happening with Ali X for me. One of the biggest releases of the year next, Ariana Grande. I've already talked about this quite in depth. It's decent. It's a little casual at times. I think vocally she's a stronger vocalist than she's actually letting us see on this album. Like, she can really belt, and tracks like Bye are really good examples of that. She has such charisma. She has such like stage presence, and I think every track probably should have just gone for that kind of in-your-face oomph, kind of slick, a bit of a funk, bit of a throwback feel to it from the 90s. Like, every track probably should have sounded like that. I know We Can't Be Friends is taking off for her, and that's a good track too. But yeah, for me personally, I'm just not like that sold on her writing. I mentioned this already, but Rick the Lie, who has a YouTube channel himself, you should be watching his stuff, said it himself, like, when she's talking about these topics, like, she should be a bit more emotive, and I feel like she tends to sing everything in this similar tone. Like, if she's singing about a breakup or she's singing about lusting over somebody, she has the same vocal tone, and I'm always a bit confused as to why she doesn't kind of change up her voice a little bit more to kind of make you feel it. Like, a lot of singer-songwriters out there have it in them to make you feel the emotions. I'm just not quite sure Ariana has it in her to do that, and there's been quite a few albums at this point now that have all landed in this kind of decent good category, and I'm just not quite sure she's ever going to give us one that I absolutely love. Now, Beyonce. Cowboy Carter. My throat is already dying. Cowboy Carter, I haven't reviewed this yet, and you're getting some insight early on before I even give you a full review, which is exciting. I know. I can tell you're excited, guys. You are probably more excited about this than the album itself. I can tell. I know. It's all right. Calm down. It's all right. But yeah, Beyonce, a bit early to say I've given this 2 listens. I don't really want to be ranking this already, but I knew I had to include it on the tier list because it would be stupid to exclude it, and somebody would be like, how have you not brought this one up? But yeah, more listens is required, but very good stuff. Beyonce is in an absolute like mad streak right now. Like, the late run of her career has been excellent. Like, when you compare her first 4 albums to her most recent 4 albums, like, the quality gap is stark, and I don't want to hate on those first 4 because there's some amazing songs on them, and of course it catapulted her to the level she is now with mainstream success in the 2000s. But I'm sorry, man, but everything from Beyonce, Lemonade, Renaissance, and this, like, I do not see how those first 4 compare to these now, because she is just in a totally new lane, and she's taking risks, like doing this album, like covering Beatles, covering Dolly Parton, like these are risks. Like I was just saying about Ariana Grande, who feels a bit safe and is sticking to stuff that she's done for a lot of albums already. Like, Beyonce is like daring. Like, she's in her 40s now and she's changing up her sound totally. She's making songs that you just wouldn't expect a mainstream artist to do. It's mad, and yeah, it's very good stuff. I will do a more in-depth review. It's not quite country in the way that I think people were expecting it to be, but there's still a lot of country in there, and I'm all for it. All right, we've got Bleachers next, self-titled. What is it with self-titled albums, man? Like, usually if an artist like drops a self-titled album quite far into their career, it ends up being like one of their most boring albums, and this was a great example of that. Like, good God, there was just so little to take away from this. It was just so dull. And I've been a bit of a Bleachers defender, actually. I liked the one from 2021 with tracks like Don't Go Dark, Stop Making It Hurt. Is that the track as well? Great tracks, but nothing on this album was memorable to me at all. Let's just move on from that. I don't have much to say. Brittany Howard, I thought this was pretty good. I think people were going a bit overboard about this one, but for me personally, I just think I'll always be attached to those Alabama Shake albums more, because I just think the instrumentation and there's a bit more richness. On this album, I wasn't quite as immersed, but there were some amazing songs like What Now, which, by the way, one of my favourite tracks of the year, easily. Love that track. Like the psychedelic soul feel of it all. Her vocals just have such a command to him. Oh, it's so good, that song. I just didn't quite feel that same feeling for every other song as that one, but it's good. It's definitely good. The first excellent album on this tier list for me personally is got to be Chelsea Wolfe. I was really blown away by this, man. Like, the production is so unique for her usual sound. She's still going for gothic stuff, but it just feels a little different, and it feels like she's like experimenting a little bit more with how the production sounds and her vocals at times as well, and how it's all mixed. It just felt a little bit different to her most recent albums. But yeah, a victim of my own downfall here, because I know she's always been really good, but I just don't listen to her that much. But this album was a reminder of how good Chelsea Wolfe really can be. Alright, this next one is Connie. Connie, in case you weren't aware. I'm putting this in very good. This has not been talked about at all, but I had to include it because I wanted to give it some flowers here. But this is like really good stuff. Like the first track just has the most amped up production you'll hear all year. Like it's just so like fiery and just explosive. Honestly, so many of these tracks just have incredibly like powerful production. It's so enjoyable to listen to. Let's go Courting next. I want to mention Courting, or should I say the 1975 guys, because I know these guys love being compared to the 1975. If you've never said that they sound like the 1975 before, if you've never said it, please tweet them and say they sound like them, because they will love you and they will probably follow you back, and they'll probably like your tweet and retweet it as well. They will love you. They love being compared to the 1975. So when you get a minute, make sure you let them know that they like that comparison, because they're gonna like you. They're gonna like you. But as for the album, it's not quite as good as the debut for me. They really go heavy with the vocoder on this album. Like, there's a lot of tracks with really extreme vocoder, and when I saw them live, actually, it didn't quite pull through as heavily, and I think the song sounded a little bit better, to be honest with you. They were still there was like effects being used on the mic when they were singing these tracks, obviously, but it wasn't quite as in your face as listening to the album. And yeah, I thought it sounded a little bit better. But still, the album's really good, super catchy. They've just got a real good knack for hooks. Like, they're so good. They're one of the best indie pop groups out there at the moment right now. Indie pop rock, whatever you want to define them as. Really good. Krisen Da ZO is in the wrong category. Krisen Da ZO is now in the right category. This was really cool too. Just like, if you listen to that Little Sims EP, which I haven't included on here, and I probably should have, but even still, if you listen to it and you felt like you weren't too sure about it, or you wanted to hear more music a bit like it, whatever you thought, that kind of Brazilian funk sound, listen to this album, man. It's got that in spades. It's so good. It's so creative, and yeah, one that you probably won't hear much like throughout the year. Declan McKenna, a lot of albums kind of falling in this decent and very good tier, but that's just how it is for me sometimes. Declan McKenna, yeah, I mean, it was kind of cool to hear tracks sound like Animal Collective on this album. I wasn't quite expecting that, but yeah, really cool psychedelic pop sound with some really creative production ideas. A total U-turn in sound for him, by the way. If you've never listened to Declan McKenna's stuff before, I mean, I don't know if you should check out his earlier stuff, because if you like this album, you're not going to get more of this, is what I'm trying to say. It's totally different. And yeah, I just like the fact that he was so daring to do an album that just sounded nothing like his other stuff, and it paid off. I mean, it didn't massively pay off. I don't think the whole album is great from start to end, but it was still pretty good, and I was pretty impressed with him doing that. We got DXR and Vale Smith next. DXR and Vale Smith. DXR, an upcoming kind of plug trap rapper, I guess you could say. Lots of cool sounds coming through in his music. And then Vale Smith has been around for quite a few years now, who's been putting out some really great stuff that I've been championing on this channel for years. Coruscate, an album I absolutely love. If you've never heard that, check it out. But just check out Vale Smith generally. And these two coming together, I thought made for a really cool album. Like, such unique sounds, like, combining here. Like, there aren't really many albums that would dare to try this thing, and I was really appreciative of it. We've got Eliza McLam next, a really underrated... I'm going to put this a bit higher up, actually. In fact, this is going to be the top of the very goods. Beyonce can go there. Yeah, Eliza McLam, a really underrated singer-songwriter album from this year. Maybe we're just a little jaded with how many there are at the moment. You know, when you look at, like, Boy Genius or Japanese House... or just anyone that's in this kind of singer-songwriter realm. Faye Webster, like, there's loads now at the moment. And maybe she just got lost in the shuffle a little bit, but I thought this was really good. Modern Woman is one of my favourite tracks of the year. Yeah, Eliza McLam absolutely deserves your time. Eric DOA, thought this was really good as well. Not quite on the level of the 2020 album, which I think is still his best overall body of work, but still super catchy. You could kind of hear him kind of bring out his personality a little bit more on this one. Like, usually his voice is kind of smothered in effects, and like the instrumentation might drown him out a little bit, so you could hear him a little bit more come to life. But yeah, still made for a really good album, just not as good as some of his other stuff. You can tell my throat isn't quite right. I hope this video is still good for you guys, because, yeah. Gonna mention Eric DeCassia next. This is in meh for me, and the reason why is I just feel we have a lot of albums very recently that do this better. I just found this album to be pretty underwhelming. And when you've got Pink Pantheress, you've got Kalela, you've got Tinashe, who have so much personality, doing similar production, doing similar sounds, and this album just didn't have enough standing out for me. And I hate to compare it to other artists. I hate to do that, because I know sometimes people can find that a little reductive, but it's exactly what made this album stand out to me in a mediocre way, because I was just like... when I've got other artists that do this, Rochelle Jordan as well. Yeah, just didn't quite land for me, unfortunately. Everything. Saw these live, and you know what? Some of the tracks sounded really good from this album live. You could tell that there was a little bit of a difference in how the audience responded to the new tracks versus hearing them do songs from Man Alive or Get to Heaven, or even Raw Data Field, which wasn't that long ago either. Like, there was just a total shift in the atmosphere in the crowd. I don't know if that's just because people haven't sat with the album long enough yet, or it's just because people are similar to me who think the album's just decent, but didn't quite live up to their usual stuff. But that was interesting, I thought. Definitely found that interesting. But still, some really good tracks on this one, like Enter the Mirror, Cold Reactor. I just think I was so hyped for Raw Data Field that it was probably going to be hard for me to feel similarly to another album from them immediately after. It's only been a couple of years. But yeah, Fortets. I'm going to put this in decent good, but it's going to be the highest of the decent goods. I think for me, we aren't really getting anything new on this album, and I think Fortet has done so much great music at this point that I'm just not quite like sold on this one maybe as I should be. But Jesus Christ, Daydream Repeat, what a song that is. Alright, another excellent album, guys. We have Freako with the debut album. Freako, absolutely love this one. I just feel like they've mastered the indie rock sound that came from like previous decades in such a great way on this album. The only thing I guess could be a critique is that they're not doing anything massively new, but just in terms of how Like the vocal delivery and the lyrics come together in such a passionate way. It just makes it so likable, and I can't really fault it for that. Yeah, you could definitely go, oh, they sound like this band, they sound like that band. These tracks have a similarity to those albums from like the late 90s, early 2000s. Of course they do, but it's about execution for me, and I just think this album's just done so bloody well that I can't really mind if it does have similarities. This one's a letdown for me. Future and Metro Boomin, probably the highest of this tier though. Look, don't get me wrong, there's some really good tracks on it. I really like Everyday Hustle. I really like Why Is It Not Moving? Like That, of course. How can nobody not at least appreciate Like That? That is a track that has so many layers to it and just has blown things open in a way that could shift hip-hop culture for the next year or so. We just don't know what could happen with that song. And still, there's been no response from Drake, which is interesting. But still, the impact it's had, just how fiery Kendrick sounds on the track. Look, there's so many good things to say about that song. The beat is great too. But as for the album on the whole, I mean, it's really long. We're not really hearing Metro Boomin at his most creative. We're hearing beats we've heard him do for years now. Like, I'm kind of surprised no one's really calling out how derivative some of the production sounds. Future isn't rapping at his most exciting for me either. We've heard him rap like this before. We've heard these flows before. I just think going back to some of his earlier stuff and some of the tracks that they collaborated from years back, you know, tracks like Radical from Monster, or some of the tracks that were amazing on DS2, or just throughout the career of Future, he's picked so many insane, weird, forward-thinking beats. And then when I listen to this, as a massive Future fan that I am, I can't help but feel like, yeah, this is just fine. I've heard it before. He's done better before. Metro's done better before. This should have been a massive event for me. That was one of the best of the year. It just hasn't lived up, I'm afraid. But I think it's only because I have high expectations for them both, more than anything else. So maybe I'm a victim of my own downfall there. I keep saying that, don't I? I've said that twice this video. Anyway, that's maybe the theme of the video. Glass Beach, one of the best albums of the year for sure for me. It's got a bit underappreciated actually. When it first came out, I feel like people were all over it. People were really excited. But now a few months have passed, I haven't really seen much talk about Glass Beach. And that makes me sad, guys, because I thought this was great. The Radiohead influence is pretty clear. There's no denying that. But again, just the impassioned vocals, the sprawling lengths of the tracks, the way that they divert into these weird passages and just take you all over the place. It's so much better than the debut. Like, I can't believe not enough people are appreciating this album. To me, I think it's just such a clear, great contender for the year so far, like a high placement on a year-end list. I absolutely love it. All right, the God for Him included this one. I know not many people will be familiar with it, but this is some really cool, ice-cold hip-hop that I think anyone that's a fan of Griselda will be all over this. The album cover's great too. It just looks like a classic PS2 game or something like that. But yeah, really like that one. The God for Him. Green Day. I feel like people were trying their best to call this a good album when it first came out, you know. And I was just like, I need to fix this bullshit, man. People are not telling the truth. This was not good. It was a mild step up from their last one, because their last one was just bad. But it wasn't great. Like, the lyrics were really tacky and cringe. You know, I guess in a similar way to what I was saying about Future. Like, we've just heard this before. Like, they were doing this in the 90s. They haven't changed at all since 1994. Like, come on, guys. We need some progression. This wasn't good. Okay. My throat. I'm so sorry, guys. I am so sorry. Halo Maud. This is really good. French pop, guys. Look, French pop can be so good. And when it is, it's this good. It's so good. French pop, yes. We've got Idols next. Yeah. Idols, one of the biggest letdowns of modern times, I would say. They just started so strong. And they've just dropped, like, naff stuff since. I don't get it. I even as a post-punk fan, Like, I know this album's not trying to be like the heavy punk stuff that they were doing in the first couple of albums. I'm okay with that. But even as like a post-punk fan, I'm still not feeling this at all. And that track with LCD Sound System, man, that's kind of embarrassing. I'm sorry, but that track just does not work. Yeah, I'm not with it. A bit of a disappointing one here for me personally, because I expected to love this, but I just don't really vibe with the new Jolene album. It deserves to be higher up though, but yeah, just really love Footwork, really love the style that she's going for, but the album itself just didn't really land for me. Just a bit of a disappointment. Okay, we've got the Julia Holter album next as well, which I think is very good. I'm a massive fan of Julia. Love her discography, saw her live. Her discography really is one of the best of like modern times. I think I even said one time in a video or somewhere that I think the 2010s output that she put out is the best of anyone of all genres in the 2010s. And you know what? That might have been a take that's aged well, because thinking about it, I mean, it's just so good. Like, it is so ridiculously good how strong that is in the 2010s. Like, even Ecstasy, which gets really underrated, I think is a great album. Then you've also got, Avery, God, man. You've got so many great albums as well. Have You in My Wilderness? Like, that whole run of albums is ridiculously good. Yeah, that's got to be up there with the 2010s best for me. And yeah, I think it's similar to maybe some of these other artists where I've said I expected a bit more. I think my expectations with Julia are just so sky high that it was so hard to live up. And it's okay for an artist not to drop like amazing albums consistently, because it's so hard to do that. I think this is just like a slight dip. Like, it's a slight dip, really. Like, she was at such a high tier before. That's only a minor dip. It's like, it's like Messi scoring like 80 goals in a season or in a calendar year. Was it 91 or something he did? And then the year after he gets like 70 goals or 60 goals. It's like, it's still insane to score that many. And it's still ridiculously high quality, but it's just not quite as good as it was before. But yeah, there are just a few tracks on this album where the vocals are meandering, like Me, You. I just thought that was a bit meh, to be honest. But yeah, overall, still really good. The first bad of this tier list has got to be Justin Timberlake. Reserved only for the true bad. And good God, was it bad. Just like, some of it's so cringe. Like, I was actually like pulling faces hearing his lyrics on this album. Just like, why are you saying that? Like, he used to have a bit of a slick coolness about him, where, he'd sing about girls, he'd sing about, like, maybe hooking up with girls or meeting girls at bars. He's done it before on other tracks a lot, or how he's, like, the coolest guy who's so sexy and he's bringing sexy back. Like, that was all a bit cringe back in the day, if we're being honest, too. But he kind of pulled it off at the same time. Like, it was cringe, but he had something about him that made it work. This album is doing all that, but it just doesn't work, and it's even worse than it was before. The production's really stiff and boring. Like, when you think of JT's classic stuff, you think there's a nice groove there. You think there's a nice melody, but not here. We got Casey Musgraves next. Just thought the writing on this was really piss poor. It's not that bad. It's not a bad album at all, really, but yeah, it's just like The Architect. She used to write better than this, man. I'm sorry, she used to write better than this. I just find it all so lazy now. I thought Lonely Millionaire had interesting production because she samples JID, but otherwise most of the songs sound exactly the same. There's no variation. Golden Hour had variation. Same Trailer, Different Park had variation. This just sounds the same note the whole way through. You can't separate the songs in terms of how they sound. It sounds nice, don't get me wrong, but I just think an artist this big should be putting out more adventurous music than this, and writing better too. The rhymes and stuff were just so simple. I can't cope with it. Quite a big fall off for Casey, I think, now. From where she used to be. Caliuchis. This is going really high up because this was really, really bloody good. And an album that I keep finding myself going back to actually quite a bit with some of the tracks. Like, so replayable, so lush, so fun at times as well. Some of the tracks with some of the features in the middle section were a little weak, but still, really, really good stuff. Up there with her very best work, I would say. And yeah, I'm just all for what Kylie's doing on this album. Kanye and Ty Dolla $ign. Oh, we've been here before. We've talked about this one before. And look, he said and been pretty awful for a few years now. We can't deny that. But we're talking about the music here. And if you were to detach all of that, that's fine. I'm going to do that just for the sake of this. And the music's still not good either, and it hasn't been for a while. And I think we're like latching on to. I don't know how to say it, but like, it's like we're latching on to what he used to be, and we're kind of like scared that he's fallen off, and we're too scared to say it. But he has, like, the quality since Jesus is King has not been good enough. And I know people like Donda, and I still stand by that as well. It's ridiculously long. It's bloated. So many of the tracks aren't good on that album. Again, if you shaved off, like, you know, however many tracks and made your own version, that's still not the album, is it? You're making your own, like, 10-track version. But the entire album isn't good. This isn't that good either. The production isn't that inventive. Some of the features are terrible. The mixing is messy as well. No. It's just a no from me. And I'm not making excuses for Kanye anymore. He is much better than this. This is nowhere near his best stuff. And he may have gone past the tipping point now. Is he going to come back and make something worthwhile again? Because I'm already seeing people change their mind on this album, which I knew was going to happen. A few months pass and people are going, you know what, I'm kind of getting bored of Carnival. I'm kind of getting bored of this album. It wasn't as good as I remembered it to first be. It happens every time nowadays with Kanye. We realise later on that he's not put out anything worthwhile, and people have done it with this one too. Kim Gordon next, which I really appreciate what this album was trying to do, and I do want to give it props for that, but I just didn't like it. I just didn't like it. Okay? I wanted to like it. It's so daring, it's so garish, it's so ridiculously bold, it's so obnoxious, it's so in your face, and it's so wildly creative. But at the end of the day, I can only speak on what I like and what I don't, and I just kind of thought she sounded a bit goofy, to be honest with you, and I just couldn't get with it. So I appreciate it, but nah. Last Dinner Party could be album of the year contender, but I will say, out of the 4 excellent albums that I absolutely love from this year so far, not one album is really standing out and running away with that album of the year contender. Not in the way that there were some last year, where it was like, oh, you know, there were albums that I absolutely love that could be the best album of the year. These are all similar in quality. But out of the 4, Last Dinner Party is the best one for me so far. Yeah, it's so good. It's an album that's so open to criticism because of how they got popular so quickly and how they've kind of just come out of nowhere, and the whole industry plant stuff and a few other things that have popped up about them since all of that. It's so obvious that you could just say, these guys, write them off, they're not real, they've faked their way to the top, that kind of stuff. But ultimately the music is just that good, and I don't particularly care how they got there. Look, a lot of times in music, you do need connections to make your way to the top, and you do need people to co-sign you, and you do need that. You do need it to make your way through. You know, artists that is popular got there without that. Like, they didn't. There is nobody, none of the biggest artists in the world got there without having that. So I don't really mind. Usually I mind when the music isn't good, but for me, I just think this is great. It's great. The chamber pop influence, the kind of like Florence and the Machine, Marina and the Diamonds influence coming through. The Black Country New Road influence as well is pretty interesting on this album. I just think there's so much going for it. The vocals are fantastic. It's theatrical. It's over the top, but all in the best ways. I think it's great. Okay, next, Lyrical Lemonade. My eyes look watery, and it's probably because I've been coughing so much when the camera isn't on. So don't worry about me. I'm not crying. But I will cry about this album, because what the hell was that Blink-182 rendition? Someone tell me what that was, please. Please tell me what that was. Just somebody out there, please explain that. Yeah. Ooh, maybe the first major hot take. MGMT, I'm so sorry. I couldn't vibe with it. I found it really boring. The last 3 tracks, I will never forget how they made me feel. They sucked the soul out of me, guys. They sucked the soul out of me. They're just so dire. There's just no colour. There's no life. And yeah, the album itself just really drained me. I found it so dull. For what these guys used to be, I kind of find it sad that we've ended up here. But I know nobody will agree with me, because that was not an agreeable review. I get it. And nobody, people like this album. I get it. But no, I can't do it. Okay, McGee. This was really nice surprise, honestly. I like the Dijon feel to this album. I'm quite a big fan of Dijon, actually. And it's really lo-fi. Dream Police is a great track. Yeah, lots going for this album. Quadeca. Quadeca. Are we going a bit overboard with Quadeca, man? I don't want to ask questions like this, but are we going a little overboard with Quadeca? Like, he's alright, he's good. But are we just going a little crazy about his music? Like, I don't know, man. It's nice, it's decent. There's some really, really good tracks on it. Like, What's It to Him? And I've got way too many friends. I've got way too many friends. Like, they're fun, they're catchy, but I don't know, nothing really like stands out in a way that if I listen to an Aries or a Breakance, and I feel like he's trying to step into that lane a little bit with some of these songs on this one. But they've got bags of personality, they've got bags of charisma, and I just would much rather listen to an Aries or Breakance, and I just don't think he's quite at that level. I think he's good, but I don't know, man. He's not put out anything that I would consider like album of the year worthy ever, and yeah, it's still good though. Okay, Blue Lips, Schoolboy Q. This was a nice surprise, because I just thought, yeah, Schoolboy Q doing bangers is what we want. Yin 101, Pop with Rico, just Pig Feet, just outrageous. And I think for me, I just wanted every track to be like that. Just blow my face off, just blow my socks off. And I don't think every track did, but I don't think he wanted to do that for every song anyway, and that's fine. But I think just for me personally, what I wanted to hear wasn't quite what the whole album gave me. But a step up from Crash Talk, easily. Shea Universe, one of the most underrated R&B albums of the year. This is super soulful, it's super buttery, it's smooth. Good God, Shea Universe needs more love. Okay, last 6 albums now. Let's see if I can do this in one take without bloody coughing and dying. That would be wonderful today. Thank you, Jesus. It is your day. You're supposed to be nice to me. Tapir, very good, lovely folk stuff. Not really much to say, but some really, really lovely, lovely sounds. Very impressed with it. The Smile. Oh, The Smile. The Smile. Whoops. Oops. Didn't mean to put that there. Let's try that again. Oh, whoops. I did it again. Whoops. Whoops. It keeps falling in the bad here. Whoops. Oh, whoops. Oh, it did it again. Wow. It keeps happening. That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't like that one. Did not like it. Boring as hell, man. I couldn't cope with it. I'm sorry. Let's just move on before I get cancelled. Tyler, really liked this one. Thought Tyler was very good. For a debut album, she's showing a lot. Personality, lots of nice arrangements with the instrumentation, some really lovely hooks. I think people have kind of forgotten about it because, it's just that girl that trended on TikTok with water. But the whole album is really good. Do not write it off. I tell you right now, she could be one to watch for the future. Really could be. Vertical, another one to watch for the future. There's kind of no order with these. I tried to order them. They were just all over the place now, to be honest with you. Within the tiers, I don't think they're really ordered properly. But, you know, the tiering matters. And Vertical, very good. Anyone that's a fan of like hyperpop mixed in with fused in with indie rock, think of someone like Jane Remover, please check out Vertical. This was a really nice surprise. One that didn't get much talk. The album's called Reverie. Tell you right now, one to watch for the future. Waxahachie I thought was pretty good. Just a Waxahachie album, really. I don't know what to say. All her albums sound exactly like this, so if you're a fan of all the other albums, then you're going to like this one. The MJ Lenderman feature was really nice. I thought it was a really good track. Everything else was just like, yeah, I've heard this before. Last but not least, because of the alphabetical ordering, Yeet. Which, you know what, I was very impressed with Yeet, you know. I was very impressed with Yeet, I've got to say. Yeet was a really, really game-changing album for me. I thought he really tried to shift the boundaries for what rage music could be. He just absolutely tore it apart, gave it this really cool, industrial sound, apocalyptic, post, like, doom universe, something, whatever you want to call it. It just sounded so cold, it sounded so icy, it made me feel, you know, isolated, and it just had this despondent feeling, which I thought was so cool. Really, really put in a lot of effort with this one. Yeah, I thought it was very good. It just was a little long. Just a little long, didn't need to be that many tracks, but otherwise, really good. And that is it from me. I'm sure there's probably a reason why you shouldn't record videos when you have a cold or a flu or anything like that, because this has been very hard and painful. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I haven't been off-putting with my voice or anything like that. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but good God, I had to pause and cough so many times. I should get some rest. But it shows my dedication to giving you guys a video like this every single Sunday. There are more tier lists that you can check in on the channel, in the playlist of tier lists. You can check out all kinds of other content as well. And as I said already, make your own tier list. Send it me over on Twitter, wherever you want to send it. Let me know your thoughts on mine. If you agree, disagree, what's your album of the year so far? Is there any that I've excluded that you think I should have included? Let me know as well. Subscribe, check out my Patreon as well if you want to support me over on there and request videos like this in the future. Have a good day, and goodbye.